Most people assume that someone who prefers doing things alone is either lonely, socially awkward, or quietly falling apart. But what if that assumption is completely backwards? What if the people who choose solitude on purpose, without apology, without explanation, are actually operating at a level most people never reach? Here's what nobody tells you. Solitude isn't a warning sign. For certain kinds of minds, it's a signal, a very specific one. And if you do the 6 things I'm about to describe alone, by choice, without being asked, psychology suggests your mind works differently than most. It's a Saturday afternoon. Your phone has been quiet for hours. Somewhere across the city, people you know are in loud rooms, group chats, shared playlists, and you're sitting somewhere still. A window, a quiet corner. Maybe just your car with the engine off. Not sad. Not waiting, just thinking, moving through something at your own pace. And a small voice surfaces. Should I feel strange about this? That voice was never yours. It was placed there slowly, over years, by a world that decided happiness looks like a crowd. That a good life sounds loud. That choosing stillness means something went wrong. But here's what's actually happening in that quiet, and why it matters far more than most people realize. Number 1. You think through problems alone before asking anyone. When something difficult lands in your life, your first move isn't to reach for your phone. It's to sit with it, to turn it over quietly, to feel where it resists, where it gives, where it doesn't make sense yet. Most people can't do this. The moment discomfort arrives, they outsource it. A text, a voice note, a group opinion before they've formed one of their own. Psychologists call this outsourcing cognitive discomfort. It feels like connection, but over time it quietly erodes trust in your own thinking. When you sit with a problem alone first, you're not just solving it. You're building an internal locus of control. The practiced belief that your own reasoning is worth something. People who develop this make better decisions over time. Not because they're smarter, because they've learned to think without a safety net. Number 2. You process emotions alone, quietly. This is different from shutting down. Very different. There are people who go silent because they're avoiding. And then there are people who go silent because they're actually doing the work, sitting with a feeling long enough to understand what it actually is, instead of performing it for an audience or dissolving it into distraction before it can be heard. The second type tends to develop what psychologists call emotional granularity, the ability to identify exactly what you're feeling, not just bad or off, but the precise texture of it. That specificity leads to better emotional regulation, stronger relationships, and quietly better mental health. Most people never develop it because they never sit still long enough to feel anything clearly. Number 3. You have private rituals nobody assigned you. A walk you take the same way every week. A playlist that only comes out when you're alone. A few minutes of silence before the day properly begins. Nobody told you to do these things. Nobody's grading them. You just started doing them, and they became yours. Psychologically, this is called self-authorship. The quiet act of building your own inner world, rather than waiting for the outside world to hand you one. It means you don't need constant external noise to feel okay. You've learned to generate your own signal from the inside, and that's rarer than it sounds. Now here's where it gets interesting. A lot of people who do these things feel quietly guilty about it. They've been told, directly or indirectly, that preferring stillness means something is wrong with them. So some of them stop. They push themselves into loud rooms that don't fit. They perform a version of themselves that's more acceptable. And what gets lost is something difficult to recover. The comfort of being at home inside your own mind. The ability to trust yourself. The capacity to be alone without it feeling like a punishment. The irony is that the people doing the pushing are often the ones most afraid of silence. Because silence asks something of you. It asks you to be present with yourself, without distraction, without performance. Most people find that genuinely terrifying. That's not a judgment. It's just what's true. Number 4. You make big decisions without needing consensus. You'll gather perspectives. You'll genuinely listen. But when it comes to actually deciding something that matters, a relationship, a direction, a chapter you're considering closing, you go somewhere quiet and make the call yourself. You don't need 5 people to confirm it before you can breathe. Social psychology has spent decades documenting how powerfully humans drift toward conformity under uncertainty. When we don't know what to do, we look at what others are doing and feel the pull to follow. It's ancient wiring, but you've learned to separate input from instruction. Other people's opinions are data. They're not your answer. That distinction is intellectual independence. and it's genuinely hard to develop. Number 5. You enjoy your own company without needing to justify it, not tolerate. Actually enjoy. There's a version of solitude that feels like exile, where you're alone and wishing you weren't. And then there's the version you probably recognize, where you're alone and you feel like yourself, where the quiet isn't empty. It's full. People who reach this have done a kind of inner work most quietly skip. They've become comfortable with their own thoughts, their own rhythm, their own strange sense of humor that doesn't need an audience. Psychologists call this self-companionship, and it's one of the strongest predictors of long-term psychological well-being, not wealth, not achievement, not even relationships, the ability to be alone and feel genuinely whole. Number 6. You reflect on your own behavior without being asked. At some point, maybe late at night, maybe after a conversation that left something unresolved, you find yourself asking, why did I respond like that? What was I actually feeling? What would I do differently? Nobody asked you to do this. Nothing went catastrophically wrong. There's no external pressure. You just do it, quietly, on your own time. This is called unprompted self-reflection, and it's a marker of what developmental psychologists describe as a post-conventional mind, someone whose moral and emotional compass is genuinely internal, not just a reaction to outside expectations. Most people only reflect when something breaks loudly enough to force it. You reflect as a habit, as a quiet, ongoing form of self-respect. Here's what I want to leave you with. None of this is loud. None of it is visible. You won't be congratulated for sitting alone with a hard feeling until it makes sense. Nobody hands out recognition for making a quiet decision without needing a crowd's approval. There's no external reward for the depth of your inner life. But these things shape a person in ways that last. They build a mind that trusts itself, a self that doesn't require constant proof it's okay, a kind of intelligence that isn't measured by tests or credentials. It's measured by the quality of your inner life and how honestly you're willing to look at it. Most people never get there, not because they can't, but because they never slow down long enough to find out who they are when nobody's watching. You already know how to do that. That's not a small thing. That's actually everything.